3, 2, 1.
Hello, Missouri Aquarium Society, and welcome to your second Thursday Know Your Speaker. We have a great interview today. We are going to be introducing our speaker of next week, Neil Frank. But before I introduce him and get him on the show, I want to kind of go through a couple of announcements. We have some super exciting news that I cannot wait to share with you guys. So let's not delay anymore. The swap, the auction, and the banquet are on the first weekend in May 1st and May 2nd. This is our classic vendor swap. So for the past while, I just released a video on this. We've been doing a bring a bag, take a bag swap. That is not the kind of swap that's going on here today. I wish we had a different name for it, but our classic vendor swap is where vendors bring their fish and their plants, driftwood, their just aquarium supplies, and they bring them and display them on a table in front of them. And then you, as a buyer, could come up and just buy the stuff from them, just directly from them. We also have an auction. That's exactly what you think. Someone's up there going, "Hey, dollar, give me a dollar, and $2." And then we have our annual banquet and members only banquet. So right now, the vendor spots for the swap and the auction are open to MassI members only for now. However, that's to my knowledge, but you do not need to be a MassI member to be a buyer at either event. So that is the big news. I am so excited to share with you guys. If you guys would like to become members, so you guys can kind of be vendors at this thing, let me kind of show you guys where to go. I'll share my screen with you real quick. We go to MissouriAquariumSociety.com. You can come over here and you can click on membership. And then down here, you can register with PayPal. It just takes like 1 or 2 minutes. It's pretty easy. And then what that does is it gives you access to the darter and all of our members only functions. And it gives you the ability to vend at our auctions and our swaps and things. And the darter, if you guys are unfamiliar, the darter is really, really cool in-house published magazine that our amazing editor, Chuck Bremer, puts together. It is just absolutely so cool. Let me make sure. I hope this is the right one. Nope. That is Neil's bio. Sorry, Neil. So right here, let me get it again. Boom, the darter. All right, so this is just tons and tons of information here. You can see is almost 50 pages worth of just fun articles written by people. There's an article in here by Kurt Zahringer. He was that's sorry, it's wrapping up our March program. There's articles by Mike, Jack Heller, Holly Payoni. There's just all sorts of different fun things to look at. And we have some amazing in-house writers that we're very proud of. So definitely worth the $15. You get the subscription all year long. Enough of that. You guys came here to see me talk to Neil and ask some questions of yourself. Make sure that you do have questions for Neil. You ask him over probably that direction in the live chat. And without any further ado, aquatic gardener expert Neil Frank, welcome, man.
Good evening.
All right, so Neil.
So are we all in the same time zone?
I doubt it. We have some people we've got a regular who's in here from Sweden quite often. All right, looks like people are starting to pile in. Neil, glad to have you, man. We were talking for a little bit in here before we kind of went live, and you were saying you've got a little bit of a surgery coming up.
Oh yeah, I'm having my cataracts removed, and so I should have 50% clear vision for when I'm giving the talk next Thursday.
Yeah, we were discussing there's a possibility of our first eye patch on the channel, so I'm excited about that. But at the same time, I'm also sympathetic.
Should I get pirate hat?
So Neil, you've been keeping fish for how long now?
I think I started when I was a teenager with my first aquarium, 20-gallon aquarium. I might have been 15, so it's pushing 60 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. You know, I was just thinking the other day kind of about, you know, I have a son now and he's growing up so quickly, and you got me thinking about time and kind of how fast the last like 10 years have gone. And that made me realize, like, wow, a decade is actually a pretty good chunk of your time, and it feels like it goes by in a blink, you know? It's kind of freaky. So Neil, I was wondering, so you started, I have here written down that you're one of the founding members of the AGA.
Yeah, so
what was that
I
like?
was actually the organizing member of the AGA. So in 1990, back up, in 1988, an organization was formed called the American Aquatic Gardeners Association, AAGA. It lasted about 2 years. It was organized, I think, principally by Dick Van Hefty from Iowa, and due to various reasons, lack of interest, financial issues, it sort of went kaput after about 2 years, maybe in 1989. And so for a year, all these people with pent-up interest in aquatic gardening that had started in the late 80s, following the publication of the Optimum Aquarium in Germany, this organization disappeared and there was nothing to replace it. So I decided I was going to resurrect it and make it international. So in 1990, it was spawned or hatched.
Now you were sorry. I'm putting this into perspective real quick. This is before the internet, really.
This was around the same time as the internet was just blossoming.
Yeah. So how were you wanted to make this international? Kind of what was your how were you getting from A to B?
Well, around in the late 80s, the internet existed, and it was a lot different than it is now. At that time there were groups called news groups. Some of them were supported by CompuServe, some of them were supported by other more non-commercial entities, and they were aquarium.net and different groups. And so there was an opportunity to converse through the internet with people all over the world. But for our organization, the way we structured it and made it international was we just declared it. We just said, we don't want to restrict it to the Americas, and we wanted to invite and include participation from our partners in Europe and Asia. So we just dropped the name American and just restarted it as Aquatic Gardeners Association. And our principal vehicle for communication was a publication called The Aquatic Gardener. And this was an in-print publication, not something we don't really have today. So this was something we didn't take advantage of the internet for that communication purpose, but we used the publication and very quickly started getting participation from people all over the world.
That's amazing.
And the membership started at, in the tens and then hundreds, and maybe at the end of the decade, like we say, everything is on a decadal basis. By the end of the decade, I think we were pushing 1,000 members,
wow,
which was really necessary in order to support the printed publication, because you couldn't really, most of the money went towards the publication at that time.
Right. Wow, that's just a heck of an undertaking, man. I would imagine that's like kind of one of your more proud accomplishments in the fish keeping.
Yeah, it was, and it's actually one of my most proud accomplishments in aquarium keeping.
Yeah,
because during that decade, I lost interest in fish entirely. So it wasn't really, when people say, I want to come see your fish room, I say, you mean my aquarium?
Yeah, right.
Because that was the time we transitioned from everything being fish-centric to being broader.
Yeah, the AGA is kind of, the planted tanks are huge now. If you go anywhere, I'm a fish tube junkie. So I'm on YouTube looking at all the different fish channels, and almost all of them are all about the aquarium plants. And so you're kind of one of the people that kind of started that movement towards aquarium plants. And I got to say, I probably owe it to you then that I got back into aquariums through aquascaping. And kind of that really caught my attention. I was seeing these things that I had never seen before. I was just, because randomly I'd get on Google and type up pictures of aquariums and things like that. And I was kind of blown away by what these people were out there creating. And I was beginning to see kind of at that time, I had no idea what I was actually looking at, but I remember seeing a lot of stuff about the AGA and kind of, I had no idea you guys were such a huge influencer. And so it's just really cool to have you here and kind of being able to talk to you. Now, you mentioned the Aquatic Gardener. That's the AGA journal, correct?
Correct.
What exactly does that mean, the AGA journal? What did you guys do with the Aquatic Gardener?
Okay, well, back in the 1990s, when I took the reins of editor, I guess my purpose was trying to figure out how to grow plants. And at that time, very few people were using CO2 or understanding what it did, the whole role of nutrients, which were important, how much do you need, lighting. So, and I come from a technical background, and so during a lot of the articles that I invited for publication and sought after were to explain the how-to of aquatic gardening.
Yeah.
A little bit about, the plants themselves, but more about how to make them grow. After about 10 years, the organization evolved into something different, and other people became more involved, and I kind of stepped back. And starting around 2000, the organization focused on things that you mentioned, Jake. Aquascaping. There were contests that were sponsored by the organization.
Yeah.
A lot of this was followed in the footsteps of Takashi Amano
Yeah.
from Japan, who was the really kick-started the whole aquascaping theme, and he actually became a big contributor to our publication. He allowed us to reprint his articles in the publication, awesome. And the organization started sponsoring our own contests, which followed the international aquascape contest that he started several years earlier. And then we started having conventions.
Yeah.
That were done every 3 years. And so that's pretty much the Aquatic Gardeners Association in a nutshell. And there's a lot of people that go to the Aquatic Gardeners Association that don't really know a lot, that go to the conventions that don't really know that much about plants, but they just enjoy the atmosphere, the camaraderie, the people that are there. Some of those people I'm mentioning are part of your club, and they're not, well known for aquatic gardening, but they attend every convention.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was looking back into fish keeping, I actually found Takashi Amano, like you were saying. He was very influential for me personally. And I actually didn't find him until he had passed away, and I had no idea he had passed away. And so it was kind of like heartbreaking to like, oh, I have this hero who's already passed. I'm like, oh man, that.
So here's a little anecdote for you.
Yeah, I'd love to.
In 1995, either 94 or 95, I visited Amano in his hometown of Niigata, which is on the western side of Japan. Wow. And I think I was the first person from North America to visit him. And the way this came about was somewhat serendipitously. So I was on a business trip in Taiwan and Hong Kong, and I had to pass through Japan to get to those other places. And as I did during this time.
Oops. Uh-oh. We have lost Neil. Let me give him a call real quick. Call Neil Frank. And hopefully we can get him back in. Guys, while we are waiting on Neil Frank. Oh, come on. I'll do it myself, Siri. Sorry. Once crap hits the fan, it just goes everywhere. All right. While we're doing that, let me catch up here in the chat. Dragon Layers here. What's up, man? Says, hey, Jake, what's up? Mike is in. Neil, can you hear me? Neil, can you hear me? Hello, hello? Neil? Well, I guess he is having more than one technical issue at a time here. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Goose Not Maverick is in the chat. We got Jeff. Neil, can you hear me? Hello, Neil? Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Nope. Hello, hello. Well, his phone doesn't seem to be working. Neil, you were disconnected. Period. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. And he's back.
Okay, I don't know how I did this, but I think I accidentally touched my touchpad, and then the whole Google Chrome window disappeared.
Oh, geez.
So it was something I did inadvertently, I guess, right?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay.
We're just here catching up on the chat and trying to get a hold of you.
Okay, so I think I was talking about
You were talking about your visit to Takashi Amano.
Yeah. So, okay. So I was mentioning that I was flying through Tokyo, and I did some outreach to an AGA member, Aquatic Artists Association member, who was from Japan. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to be passing through. Would you like to meet?" So Yukio, I can't remember his last name, but Yukio met me at the airport, and he was like the most gracious person. We met me at the airport. We took some transportation to Yokohama, where he lived, which is about 30 minutes to the south. He took me all around, showing me aquarium shops.
Yeah.
And then he says, "I have a surprise for you. Tomorrow we're going on a trip." I said, "Really?" So he had bought tickets for me on the bullet train, which was like a $200 ticket, and in like 2 hours we went across Japan. It was 120 miles an hour or whatever, and we arrived at Niigata. And he says, "You got to, you're into plants. You got to meet this guy." So at that time, Amano only had a like an aquarium shop with a couple of people working for him, and there's an article about this in the Aquatic Gardener that was published in the mid '90s. So,
wow. Is there anywhere that we can go and get those old articles? Are they still available?
There is an archive of all the articles are available online to members.
Okay, very cool.
So there is you can get every single article that was ever published by the Aquatic Artists Association online, which is really a nice feature for membership.
And can you become a member online?
Can
you register for that online?
I assume so. I would. They're a pretty savvy organization, so I would. No one's ever asked me that question, but I assume so. I will say 99.9% sure you could do that.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot there. All right, guys. What is going on here? Okay, got a little bit of a glitch going on. Whew, it's been a night for technical difficulties, although technically it was our difficulty. All righty, so the AGA, and it said that I have here written that you were the editor of the Aquatic Gardener Journal.
That's correct.
What was that like editing that? Like, what did that look like for you? Like, kind of the details of it.
So I was the editor and publisher. So
wow. You had full control.
As the editor, I solicited articles.
Mm-hmm.
I actually read every article and didn't accept every article for publication. I lost a couple of potential authors because in my back and forth, I asked some questions that they thought were a little bit too critical or challenging, and they said,
they felt like you were challenging their knowledge.
If you don't like what I'm submitting, then I'm sorry. But so I took an active role of editing by trying to add content where things were ambiguous or needed clarity. Mm-hmm. I also inserted these little what do you call them? There's a technical term for this, but like in an article, you have this thing, a little box with some highlight and quotes. Yeah, like you would want to bring attention to certain features, so I would bring out those and insert them into the printed article, which I did the typesetting and ultimately the printing of the magazine as well.
Okay, nice.
And I did this for 10 years. And after 10 years, I turned it over to someone else. And it was a good thing I did, because after 10 years, you kind of get burnt out.
Sure.
At least I did. And then the next person who took it over took the magazine into a full color publication.
Wow.
So it was done in black and white initially, and it was just done. I've had it printed on a dot matrix printer at my home and brought it to the print shop, and they printed it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's whenever you're doing something like that, sometimes you know, if you're kind of feeling burnt out, but you're doing it because you think no one else will, sometimes you're just the person that's in the way of someone who's willing to kind of take it to the next level. I've had that experience several times in my life.
Yep.
Um,
Sometimes being burnt out leads to unintended improvements.
yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So is that kind of like when you and AGA, or you guys kind of, you just got less involved with the AGA after that point?
Uh, that's correct. Around 1990, the organization went in a different direction. It picked up on this aquascaping
Right, you were telling me about that.
theme and the aquascaping rage that was going on. And to this day, I have never really caught on that wave. I enjoy the
Yeah,
beauty of an aquarium. I like it to be visually pleasing. I love to have healthy, colorful, you know, aquatic plants in all my tanks.
yeah,
And I try to bring the beauty out from the plants themselves. But with aquascaping, it took on a dimension I didn't feel very connected with, because aquascaping, as it, for the most part, is a it's a takeoff on what Takashi Amano started, and his concept was to represent what he saw in nature above ground, above, in
right,
terrestrial environment,
right.
and make an underwater representation of that.
Yeah,
It wasn't designed to
it's not
provide a
replicating
place.
nature.
Yeah, it wasn't replicating nature. It wasn't providing a place to make it more friendly for your fish to breed.
Right.
A lot of people will do their aquascapes as an artistic, photographic endeavor, and after 3 months, they take it down, do it again. So it's an art form, but it wasn't something I particularly connected with, and but a lot of people did, and I attribute the success of aquatic gardening and the interest in plants to those beautifully aquascaped
Yeah.
aquariums, because they're well photographed, and they're the things that people see. There's less
Yeah.
it's less photographs circulated of just planted tanks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not, they're not as sensational as,
Well,
some of
that's
the,
your
some
opinion.
of the
We'll wait until next week, and then you could tell me if
now,
you agree.
I will say this, Neil, you sent me, and you guys can go all check this out in the description of this video. Neil sent me a picture of his planted tank to use for the thumbnail of next week's video. So if you go and click the link after it says Neil's webinar for April 15th, 7 p.m. Central, if you go and click that, you don't call yourself an aquascaper, but that's a good looking tank, man. It's a very handsome tank, and you've done a great job of shaping, kind of putting the plants in the spots that are kind of visually pleasing, giving the fish space to swim, but also kind of keeping that the golden ratio aesthetic that's so important in aquascaping.
So as a teaser for next week's presentation,
Yes, please.
that particular tank, it's a 120-gallon tank that I first set up in 2008.
Hmm.
I still have that same tank with the same substrate today, and I'm going to be showing pictures, one or two pictures per year since 2008, of what that tank looked
Oh,
like and how it evolved from its very first
yeah.
planting,
That'll be
and how
awesome.
the fish changed, how the plants, some of them changed or just got rearranged through their natural growth patterns and selective pruning. So you'll
Okay.
see a different style of aquascaping
Yeah, yeah.
that's different than the formal
Right.
aquascaping that we
Much more
tend to think of.
sustainable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess if you have a tank that's been going for uh, 13 years, I guess you could say it's sustainable.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, most people don't live in the same place for 13 years, so for that fish tank to be fish home for 13 years and have it
Yeah,
be like,
usually when I take down a tank, it's when I move.
yeah, I understand that. Neil, you are kind of a self-professed aquatic gardener. You said like you kind of said earlier, you're not an aquascaper. You're more of like a plant cultivator.
Correct.
Yeah, an aquatic gardener.
Yeah. In fact, I got
this?
into a little bit of a fight
Okay, I want to
at
hear about this.
at the panel discussion of the AGA convention that was held in Seattle in 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And on this panel, the purpose of the panel was to describe the status and challenges of the hobby, of the aquatic gardening hobby. And every single panelist described the challenges as, well, there's not really good sources for rock. And, it's very expensive to buy series stone. And, where do we get our driftwood? And, it went on and on. And as I was listening to this, I'm probably going to get myself in a little bit of trouble. So I need, since this is going to be preserved. So, so I really felt like this was not what I thought the organizer of that panel intended, nor what the people in the audience necessarily all wanted to hear. So I got up on my soapbox and I said, I have a different concept of aquascaping, and aquatic gardening has many dimensions to it, only one of which is this formal niche of aquascaping that has become very popular, and there's a lot of other dimensions that I think a lot of people are also interested in. And so, we came to an understanding with the panelists that, yeah, they agreed and maybe they weren't looking at it more broadly and blah, blah, blah. And then after the presentation, a lot of people from the audience came up to me and said, I'm glad you really made that point, because those are things that I've been thinking about. There's other, you have to be not everyone could do aquascaping that is worthy of entering into an international context.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you can still enjoy your tanks, enjoy your plants without being have a professional degree in art.
Absolutely. And I mean, that was a rude awakening for me, because when I was kind of getting inspired and getting back into fish keeping after when I took a hiatus there, I was really inspired by the aquascaping, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go give it a shot. It was an epic failure. I mean, I can't grow a carpet to save my life. I thought, I'll kind of DIY rig it, and I'll do my own CO2 system. And oh my God, man, it was just this algae bloom plant melting machine. That was an absolute nightmare. But then I kind of gave up on that, and I shifted towards more of like a sustainable style, kind of the aquatic gardener style, like like that tank that you have that's been going for 13 years. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to design this tank that's going to be able to be here 5-10 years. I'm just not going to have to mess with it. And as soon as I started doing that, I actually started enjoying my tanks, and they stopped causing me stress and started giving me joy, which was pretty important to actually enjoying your hobby.
Yeah. There's a certain level of intimidation that takes place when people put forth aquascaping as a level to achieve to, and if you can't achieve it, you feel like you're frustrated, or you're not enjoying a hobby. And I think we need to remind people that there's multiple paths, an infinite number of ways we can enjoy the aquarium hobby. I think it's the greatest hobby in the world.
I agree. I like it quite a bit. And I'd say it's the aquarium hobby has gotten me through, definitely gotten me through the season of COVID, of kind of the isolation and having to stay inside all the time. I'm not sure what I would have done without this hobby. So I'm definitely glad that I found it and found all you guys. And I feel so grateful that I'm able to sit here on my computer and kind of do this for you guys and kind of put on the show.
The one thing interesting about COVID is that see, I'm now retired.
Yeah.
So I think I retired almost exactly 5 years ago. And before we went live, I was telling you how
Hmm.
I now have converted my garage into a fish room.
Right.
And that was, I did that about 2.5 years ago. And so once you have 40 tanks in a garage with two cars in there at the same time, so it's not, it's just two walls of the back wall and the side wall of the garage.
Okay.
And so that's my day. I get up in the morning and go in there, and I could spend, 8 hours. Sometimes I don't break for lunch. So when COVID came, people say, "How did COVID change your life?" I said, "Not really much."
I was already a hermit then.
Yeah, exactly.
Little did you know your lifestyle was quarantine. Oh, that's funny, man. Oh, geez. Do you have any plans for after quarantine breaks? Any trips or anything like that you got planned?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm a little unsure exactly when this whole pandemic is going to be over, so I'm not
Right.
making any definite plans. As soon as we got our now I'm fully vaccinated, and a month ago we got that completed, and we visited our grandkids. So that part of my life is going to continue to visit, spend more time with my out of town families. But when the pandemic is really over, and it may not be until the end of next year, until everything is fully safe and you can move around and not worry about getting reinfected,
Yeah.
I probably will try to do some international traveling again, maybe do some other collecting trips back. Well, I love to go back to Uruguay, maybe do something in Asia.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
When you go out on your collecting trips, or like I know like we have Gary Lang as a member of our club, so like he's like the rainbow guy. Is there just something you're looking for particular, kind of a specialty that you have?
Um, Ironically, the two trips I made in the last 5 years to South America, my main interest was in finding Echinodoros in the wild. Sword plants.
Oh, yeah.
The genus is Echinodoros.
Yeah.
So the Amazon sword plant, which comes from, I don't think it comes from the Amazon, comes from southern Brazil. There are, a number of species of these sword plants. Some of them are in the United States as well. But there's one particular species that I'm very fond of, which comes from the subtropical portions of South America, almost temperate zones of Argentina and Uruguay. So this is a plant called Echinodoros uruguayensis, and it comes in green form and a red form. And so on two recent trips that I went on, that's what I was pretty much hunting down.
Okay.
These were trips that started out as fish collecting trips. I had all the permits to bring the fish back, and I brought some fish back from Uruguay. And I naively thought I could kind of slip the plants through too, because I've done this in the past. But I was wrong, and they all got confiscated in Miami.
No, you got busted.
Yeah. They asked me, "Do you have any?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And they says, "Well, do you have the paperwork?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, we're going to hold them, and if you can get the paperwork, we'll release them." But I couldn't do paperwork on getting plants imported is much, much more complicated than getting fish into the country.
I suppose that makes sense because I guess a plant would probably be more easily invasive than a fish, I guess.
It's not so much the plant itself. There's a little bit of concern about the invasiveness of a non-native plant, but it's the stuff that lives in the soil or on the roots,
parasites and the bacteria.
nematodes, and the
Yeah.
Department of Agriculture is concerned about
Mm.
bringing something in that will invade their turf. And now it's not the plant keepers. Well, the plant keepers are the ones that had brought the zebra mussel into the United States. You've read about the zebra mussel.
I sure have.
Very invasive
They're saying
organism.
it's hitchhiking on mothballs now.
It came in mothballs coming out of the Ukraine.
Wow.
But it was lack of inspection. Maybe they're cutting back on inspections. So maybe now it's a time to sneak stuff in, but sneaking stuff in is not recommended.
Yes, especially not by the Missouri Aquarium Society. Neil, we have been going for 40 minutes already. It feels like the blink of an eye. Is there anything else that we should talk about before we wrap up here? I know there's a couple things I still want to ask you, but I don't want to keep you here all night.
Well, are we going to leave time for your members to chat?
Yeah, apparently we are doing such a good job putting on the show that they don't have any questions for us tonight.
Okay. So who's actually in attendance that I might know?
I saw Mike Helwig in here earlier. Says hi, Neil.
Hey, Mike. And
then I have no idea who else you would know or not. A lot of these people are using their names. This guy's name is probably not Dragon Lair, but he's here almost every single stream we've had. Dragon Lair's been here, so happy to have him here. Goose Not Maverick, I like that name. Nice job. Jeffrey Watts, what's up? Sean, Sean's here most of our streams too. Thank you for being here, Sean.
So one feature that Zoom has, which we use for our Raleigh Aquarium Society meetings, that looks like StreamYard doesn't, is to show a gallery of all the participants. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't have an actual gallery, but I can see that right now there's one person joining us on Facebook and 27 on YouTube. So we've got about 30 people with us. We've been around that number for most of the stream here. So people are doing their water changes and stuff, probably. But
so Mike, if Mike, you're still on, one thing I remember when you gave your talk at the Raleigh, excellent talk at the Raleigh Aquarium Society, and it was focused on live foods and breeding fish. You mentioned something about you don't clean the glass because that's taking away another surface for live foods to live. And I have several aquariums like that now.
Nice. Yeah, Mike has pretty much taught me about 3/4 of what I know about fish keeping. Dragon Lair says, Jake, my name is Patrick Stevenson from Alabama. Well, thank you, Patrick. I'm probably still going to call you Dragon Lair, but go catch some shiners, man. I'm sure they're getting fired up down there in Alabama breeding season. I love those rainbow shiners. All right. I'll ask one last question before we go. Neil, I have a problem in my fish room, and you're an aquatic gardener. Maybe you can help me out. I have an aphid infestation that will not go away, and they're on all my floating plants. They're on my hornwort. They're on my guppy grass. It's a plague.
I've never experienced that firsthand, and I do know that a lot of people have had that problem, and I can't remember what the general recommendations are, so I'm not going to give you secondhand information. I try not to give secondhand information.
Well, I'm going to need some info quick because I'm about to burn it all to the ground. I'm sick of it.
But I'd be happy to research that for you if you tell me how to get rid of the ants in my fish room. So I have, what these dual ply polycarbonate covers look like. They have these channels. It's like two pieces of polycarbonate with these channels, and they use it in greenhouses. Well, I've been using these as covers for all my tanks.
Oh no, have they set up
And
a house in there?
I have some really neat videos of ant colonies in one of those covers with the eggs, and they're moving back and forth,
Oh, you're
taking
kidding me. They've
stuff to
set
the
up an
queen.
actual colony in there. Wow.
Yeah, and they were fine in there and not really bothering everything else until I discovered them and tried to take them out, and then it became a
They
nightmare with them
exploded.
dispersing throughout the entire
Oh my gosh. That's
garage.
free fish food though.
It was free fish food for a while. And I think aphids, there are some fish that will eat aphids, but I can't remember which
Yeah.
ones.
My rainbows eat them. When I do water changes, I blast them off the top of the hornwort in my rainbow tank. And
So
then gobble them
why
up.
don't you like them?
Because I like to give plants to people, but I don't like to give aphids to people. And also, it's just gross. You stick your plant in the tank, your hand in the tank, and you just come up and you're just coated in aphids.
Oh,
It's gross.
okay, that's a lot of live food.
Yeah, it's more than they can eat at this point. It really is a plague. It's horrible.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if you ever find a solution for that, you let me know.
I think there are some things that people spray on the tops of the leaves, but I can't remember what it is. You can do a Google search and then sort of take the consensus
I've
view
tried
as
doing the Google search, and I can't get aphids in aquariums. I know 10 ways to get rid of aphids in your garden.
Huh.
But just about all of those are either not feasible, like I'm not about to release 500 ladybugs in my basement.
I'm pretty sure that that's a topic that has been discussed on the Raleigh Aquarium Society Facebook page. And I bet if you did it, have you tried doing not a Google search, but a Facebook search?
I will. I'll have to do that. Draculair says, make note, don't get plants from Jake. Now, I will say my plants that are grown completely underwater are aphid free and they're good to go. But I loved doing my floaters. I grew a ton of frog bit and all sorts of stuff. But yeah,
awesome.
It's all gone now.
One thing about, I have to remember this next. It'd be hard for me to do this while doing my presentation.
All right, you owe me now. What's your answer for the ants?
I shouldn't be trying to open up new windows while I'm on the StreamYard chat because it causes it to disappear. But because of the, what do you call it, the zebra mussel invasion, some of the people in our club have acquired mossballs from sources that were infected with zebra mussels, and that has sort of closed down all plant trading in among the members of our local group, because some of the people are afraid they may be harboring the larvae of these zebra mussels and inadvertently distributing it. So we're not allowing or encouraging trading of plants.
Yeah.
I wonder if zebra mussels will eat aphids.
That always works. Introducing a species to handle another one. That's never backfired.
Never backfired, no.
I got your answer for the ants, by the way. Sean says he uses 75% white vinegar and 25% water in a spray bottle to get rid of ants. And he uses the same lids.
So. Oh, okay. Well, I've gotten rid of I just took the lid outside and sprayed it down, and that got rid of them too. But when they reestablished themselves, I think the queen was smart enough to find another home, and they established a new.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful to contain the colony while you're getting rid of it. So I've been using boric acid baits, which are safe to use in around animals and food.
Yeah.
So they use that in the hospital. So that's going to be apparently boric acid pellets. Ants eat it, and then it causes them to mess up their digestive system. Or more importantly, you want to get rid of the queen.
Now, I had this binge where I went. There's this YouTube channel called Ants Canada. He's still there. He's still making videos. And his thing, he's an ant keeper. That's his jam. And he actually is a great storyteller. And he tells the narrative of all of his different ant colonies. Anyways, all that to say, I've learned more about ants than I probably should know. I know that the way I've kept ants out of my house is anytime I see an ant, I don't kill it. I just kind of pester it and poke it and bother it, because what they do is they then release a pheromone trail that says like, hey, this place is not safe. And so another
Oh,
ant will come along his pheromone trail that he was just on to get to your countertop, and you see him hit that, and the ant will like freeze and kind of start to go faster, more agitated, and
oh,
generally head back the way they came.
cool. Well,
So
that's really good information. I think
give that a
maybe
shot.
I'll
See how it goes
maybe
for
I'll kill half the ants that way, and allow the other half to bring the bait back to the queen.
Yeah,
So
good work.
kind of get them on both ends.
Absolutely. Yeah, ants are tough, man. But enough about ants, guys. We're gonna call it here. Again, the third Thursday, that is a week from today, we are going live. Neil is giving his talk on plant. Shoot, what was the name of that talk?
Plant aquatic gardening for fish keepers.
Thank you. Aquarium plants for fish keepers. I can't wait. Neil is clearly, you guys obviously have picked that up by now. Neil is full of information, full of knowledge, wisdom, and I am super excited for this. Guys, make sure that you bring your questions. Neil will be sticking around with us afterwards to answer a couple of questions on his talk. And yeah, another quick reminder, Swap, Auction, and Banquet, the first weekend of May. That's May 1st and May 2nd. If you guys are looking for more details on those events that are coming up, you can see those in the description below. You click on our Facebook page. If you're not already a member of our Facebook page, you are free to join. However, you must answer the security questions or I will not let you in. We get a ton of spammers, a ton of fake accounts and bots. So you got to answer those, and otherwise I will not let you in. Guys, that is it. Neil, man, thank you so much. That was a really, really nice talk we just had. So very grateful for your time and looking forward to seeing you in a week.
Yeah, thanks, Jake from State Farm.
Nice. All right.